So I need to be enchanting, an educator, witty, and to keep you occupied. So no pressure. In order to maintain control and excitement and interest, I have a tool here. Okay. So this is to make sure that I can get your attention when I want you to concentrate on a particular message. But what I want to share with you is my aim, which is I want to demonstrate some techniques. I want to warm us up, to have some enthusiasm and interest and refresher in all we know already about being educators and being learners, ready for my colleagues to then also give you some insight into what we will have a chance to work with you in smaller groups for a longer time using workshops. And so this afternoon, it is the Education and Learning afternoon. And so we have many, many things to share with you. And we will be relying on you taking part and making the most of this opportunity, and I know you will. So I am now going to... my glamorous assistant has put my name up there for you. And I now get my slides, but I am not going to sit here at the lectern for long. I am going to be inviting you to do things. So first of all, my aim is to equip you with expertise and some time to work together to improve how we support teaching and learning in whatever your situation is. I know there are people from many situations here across Europe working in different allied health professions as well as rheumatologists, all working with trainees and learners. That's me, just to prove I'm authentically here, Assistant Professor of Medical Education. And what I wanted to start with was just to focus and share with you what Loreto's Teach the Teacher Classroom summarised as the 4 principles of what EULAR wanted to emphasise in its education. We wanted to make sure that everything we're involved in is emphasising problem solving in the clinical context. So not just testing and checking that people remember facts, okay? We have apps that can do that. What we need are genuine clinicians who can work with patients and learners in order to problem solve in the proper clinical context. And it's harder to do that than we might think. Second principle, teaching should always be adapted as far as is possible to the needs and levels of the learners. So that's also what makes a learning experience more powerful, the extent to which you can tailor it to the needs of that person at that time. And also, we need to be able to know how effective we are being. So teaching, efficacy, we should regularly evaluate what we do. We should be regularly asking our learners to give us feedback about what we're doing, where we can do things better, what they want us to carry on doing, what they want us to stop doing. And we need to get comfortable with inviting that conversation more often than waiting right to the end and then giving them a big questionnaire and then running away. So that's another topic we'll be looking at today. And most of all, we're there to make enjoyable learning easier, to facilitate that, and to be role models. So just to remind you of those principles, because you might need them. Because I asked you, first of all, to log in to this free online question-asking interactive software. And lo and behold, I think the quiz that you may find there shortly was asking you about the principles of EULAR learning. So there will be a chance it's designed to try and encourage you to pay attention, to prove to you that you have perhaps learned something from this situation. But my main task is to try and draw out what we already know and to review some really key ideas in learning, and particularly about student engagement, which is the latest way of describing what good teaching looks like. So we're going to start with a little quiz, and then I'm going to give a little bit of a talk through of some ideas. Then I've got an activity for you to do. Even though it's a lecture, I want you to talk to each other, but only when I explain how and why. And then we're going to pull things together, and I'd better keep going. Anybody seen Maslow's hierarchy of needs before? This is where we say we're trying to work to complete people's self-actualization at the top. But this is just updated to show that these days people don't feel their needs are being met unless they've got a good battery charge and access to Wi-Fi. But we have checked that. We have. Most of you have been able to log on to that quiz. So let's just check. What you did was go to a free website, put in my teacher name. If I paid extra and became a professional user, I could use my own name for my teaching room. But this is the free version. You can log on as a teacher and set up quizzes to use with your learners. So I invited you in as a student, asked you to log in and have a look. Hands up anybody who's had a go at the quiz. Good, and I can see how you're doing because it will reveal to me if I look as a teacher in my learning classroom. And there are some fairly straightforward ways to generate multiple choice questions or true or false questions, and that will be picked up again in Reg Denick's workshop this afternoon when you'll be thinking about assessment. But I wanted to show you a way that you can use this even in very formal lecture situations. So, I think now I'm going to move us into a discussion activity, having shown you that. So get ready to do some work. Now, one of the challenges we've got is that there's more and more knowledge. So what do? Well, the chemistry lecturers at the University of Nottingham have told me that they will try and talk faster and write faster in chalk on the blackboard, but I don't think that's going to be enough. I think what we need to do is to work together to help our learners conquer the knowledge mountain and end up with useful knowledge. So what I'd like you to think about is what you do right now to help your learners to really engage with what you want to share with them. What do you do to make it exciting, fun, interesting, to find out from them what they're doing? Do you do quizzes already? Do you have comedians who visit? I'd just like you to just spend a moment thinking and talk to the person next to you, and then I will get your attention back in about 1 minute. So this is called a buzz group. Have a little chat. Hello, can I have your attention back a moment? I'll be turning to you again shortly, don't worry. So we've got this vast amount of knowledge to convey. And we think we're in a modern era, but human beings are still the same, if not slightly worse. In that, here's a picture from, I think it's Bologna, one of the oldest European universities, 1492. And we have some modern examples of behaviour. Chatting on the back row. Texting, I think. Having a little rest after lunch. Not really wanting to watch what's going on, sitting on the sidelines. And here we have the lecturer, from the Latin lectare, to read out. Because in those days, there were very few copies of the actual book. And so the owner of the knowledge, the lecturer, read out what was known, and the other people made their copies. And we've carried on using that approach for a long time, haven't we? But how can we refresh that? How can we think about engaging learners using the technology that we have now? Jose will be spending time in his workshop and his talk looking at how we can animate our presentations and involve people in those. But for now, I just wanted to focus on this modern definition of what student engagement is. What does it look like, smell like, taste like? How do you know when your learners are paying attention? So I can check that there's nobody who's fallen asleep yet. One of the things I do is I go to the back of the room so that the back row becomes the front row. And they don't half sit up straight when you do that. But these are some definitions shared from the UK at the moment. Engagement is the term used to represent constructs such as quality of effort and involvement in productive learning activities. And down here in Buckley, who's quite a well-known person in medical education, student engagement with their course consists of the amount and quality of effort they invest in a range of important educational activities, and it is a key determinant of how much and how well they learn. So it's not rocket science, is it? But they learn better if they spend time concentrating and putting effort in, which may involve us putting in a lot of effort, telling them all of the facts, but actually it's more of a sophisticated, engaging partnership where we are designing activities that make it easier and more motivating and more pleasant for them to engage with the material for long enough to master it. Okay, so let's draw out what we know already. So in a moment I'm going to show you some pictures of of a situation, and I'm going to ask you to think about what that might be if it was to do with learning. Okay, so I'm going to ask you to be playful, metaphorical. There's no right, wrong answer. And I'm going to give you just a minute or two to think about this. I've got 5 pictures to show you. But what they do is summarise some of the most powerful roles and methods we use in education to engage learners. So here's the first one. We chop up knowledge and we feed it to our learners like a baby. So have a think, talk to the person next to you. What kind of learning does this remind you of?
Passive learning, maybe.
Passive, that's right. So have a talk between you, and then what I will do is I will call a comment from each row so that we all have a go and you all know you're going to be involved. Okay, so have a talk with the person next to you for now. So who's done some spoon feeding of learners? So in this row here, you said that it can be quite passive for that learner. Do you think the baby's the learner?
Yes, of course. What about me? I have one huge problem. I always talk to my students too much, and I know that listening to teacher to classical type of lecture is not the best type of learning because after this classical lecture our students will remember only from 5 to 10% of information because it is passive type of learning. No, it is really my problem. I like to talk to my students too much.
We all have that problem. That's great. We can help you with that this afternoon. And if you talk too much, like feed too much knowledge into the baby, what does the baby do? Quite often yes, good mime here for obviously a mother. Quite often it will spit out what you gave it. And so it will be wasted perhaps. Thank you. Thank you. So here are some things which people have said about these pictures in the past. They think that this is a kind of learning we often do. We spoon feed the learner. It makes that learner a passive person. They're just receiving information, which spoon feeding. The baby, the learner, often likes this because they don't have to work so hard. And the teacher is the one who's processed all that information. So in this analogy, you've got lovely organic vegetables, you've pureed them, you're feeding them with love to your learner, and they spit it all out, perhaps. But it's definitely important for us as teachers and educators to prepare that material out of all the chaotic knowledge there is in the world to make sure we are choosing the right information at the right time, at the right pace for that baby, for that learner. However, it can be a bit one way. Okay, you maybe give all that information out, and at the end of the year, you only find out from the exam results how well you did. And that might be a bit too late to give, the extra meal, the extra explanation that was needed. Okay, there's a danger of this, undigested regurgitation. Also, it's very centered on the teacher. The baby can't yet speak. And so we often lack what information. But of course, lectures, they are still brilliant for various things. They're fantastic at giving an expert overview of a subject, an introduction, being inspiring, and giving everybody the same message and information in the same way at the same time, and building a sense of community, which is what we are doing now. We are all starting off working together for this course, and then we can go away and work happily in our smaller groups. It's all really important stuff. How about this, though? Sometimes we have to learn by doing, by setting off up the dangerous cliff face. And what if that were a way of learning and a way of teaching people about medicine and being a clinician? In this picture, who is being a learner? Who is being a teacher? And what might that remind you of? What way of you learning? So again, compare with the person next to you, and then I'll just collect 1 or 2 comments from the whole group. So have you ever learnt in that way? And so now I am going to move through and just talk through some of the highlighted ideas I want to go through with you so that we're ready for our next speaker. But I wanted to demonstrate to you the means of having people able to discuss and have two-way conversations, even in a lecture format. Now what people often say about this is how novices learn from experts. If the previous one was a sage on a stage, this might be the guide by your side. And so there are some things we learn by doing, but with a supervisor, so being a trainee. We're often working in this way. We're doing something, we're learning from experience, we're doing it under supervision, we're exploring the terrain, whether it's carrying out an operation or whether it's carrying out our clinical practice. We're building up models when we're trainees of that terrain, getting new perspectives and doing so in a cooperative way that's keeping us and the patient safe. Sometimes the teacher is demonstrating, sometimes the learner is trying it out, and the teacher is giving them some feedback. So this is a very powerful way we learn in medicine, and it relies very much on that communication and feedback between those people. So what I'm going to show you now is sometimes we work together with other healthcare professionals to build health. So we rely on physiotherapists, ultrasound, lots of different people with different skills in order to give our service there. So we might need to simulate this and give people opportunities to learn together with others. So I'm going to move through this picture. It's very hard to get a picture of all the builders there at once. Quite hard. Sometimes we learn through curiosity. That's how we learn from childhood. And so we give people problems to solve, situations to interpret and think about. We keep curiosity. We give people a quest to carry out, and it helps motivate people and keep curiosity alive, and that's what makes learning interesting and easy to achieve. So quite often we might lose that in the way we're teaching people. We also need like a good gardener to nurture people and give them the different support that they need. If you're going to be a lupin, you might need different things to help you be the best lupin you can be than if you're going to be another kind of plant. So sometimes a teacher is a nurturer, a mentor, somebody who has been in advance of the person they're working with and can help them to develop to their full potential. So you're like a good gardener, and you're matching what's innate or there by nature with what can be nurtured and brought out of people. And people, have different needs at different times. So through those 5 pictures, what I wanted to do was share and show you that you already have a lot of insight into many ways of approaching teaching and learning and education. But I just wanted to show you, I think, 2 more slides about educational theory that we'll be drawing on today. So I want to show you this one. So when we're working passively with people, we're just inviting them to be like human photocopiers, just to copy that information. And it's hard work, and we can get them to copy it and do a test And they know it on the day they do the test, but has it really transformed them and become integrated in their knowing? I think we've all learnt things, passed a test and then forgotten it. So what we really want to be looking at is cultivating a deep approach, getting people actively engaged in learning, because we want to transform their actual brains so that they fire the neurons together so that it is an integral part of who they are. They have become something different because of that experience. And so that takes a slightly different approach. You have to give people the time and the opportunity to interact with that material and deeply understand it. And that's the kind of learning we often do after we qualify or in a sort of extended trainee situation. And I want you to think about ways you can do that all the way through before. One more slide I'm going to show you. This is the guru of learning from experience, by the way, David Kolb. But this is all part of a school of something called Constructivism. Okay? And we have 10 tips for you about how to be a good constructivist educator. First of all, find out what people know already. Bring it to their minds so that it's ready for you to use and build on in learning. Then you can build on it. Then you can find out where people have gaps or misunderstandings because they've actually communicated what they know with you in a situation where you can help them put it right. Work together with the other learners. People learn from each other and their experience as well as just from their teacher. So that's a social way that we become human. Encourage them to understand more about the learning process. So that if they know that if they reread something within 24 hours of first encountering it, and again within 7 days, they are proven more likely to be able to retain it in a long-term memory. So we need to build people's expertise in being a learner so they can work with us. Involve people, use active techniques, and give the learners the responsibility to work with you. You can't do it for them. A wise person said to me, actually, education, it's like joining a gym. Just joining the gym and paying the fee does not make you beautiful and strong. You have to turn up and you have to do the exercise. And that's what the learning environment is like too. But we are there to make that gym really effective and an enjoyable place to be for those learners. So we've drawn out a lot of what we already know. We've reviewed some key ideas, particularly about enhancing student engagement. And I'm going to be able to carry on in a while working with you in workshops, looking at these in more detail about learning and motivation, and particularly looking at how you plan your sessions to make them more engaging so that we can go away with some real tips and suggestions that will help you. And you'll have a chance to finish off that quiz later and hopefully be able to complete the questions about the principles of the School of Rheumatology nicely and straightforwardly. So that's my first section. Thank you.